Officer Jack Thompson sits in his patrol car, eyeing a group of young men on the street. His gaze fixates on Malik Johnson, a young black man he immediately assumes is a criminal. Without hesitation, Jack flips on his lights and pulls up beside Malik. "You there! Stop right where you are," Jack barks, his hand already on his holster as he exits the vehicle. Malik freezes, confusion and fear evident on his face. "I said stop," Jack repeats, his voice rising with unnecessary aggression. Malik raises his hand slowly. "Officer, what's the problem? I haven't done anything wrong." His voice is steady, but there's a tremor in his hands. Jack approaches, his stance aggressive. "Shut up and turn around." Hands on the car. He roughly grabs Malik's arm, twisting it behind his back. Malik winces, but complies. "Sir, please. I'm just walking home. I have ID. I can explain dash." "I said shut up." Jack interrupts, slamming Malik against the car. He begins to pat him down aggressively, searching for any excuse to justify his actions. A passerby notices the commotion and pulls out their phone, starting to record the incident. Jack, too focused on Malik, doesn't notice. "Officer, you're hurting me," Malik gasps as Jack tightens the handcuffs. Jack ignores him, dragging Malik towards the patrol car. "You're under arrest for resisting an officer." The bystander continues filming, capturing every moment of Jack's brutality. As soon as Jack shoves Malik into the back of the patrol car, the witness uploads the video to social media. Within minutes, the footage spreads like wildfire. Comments pour in, expressing outrage at the clear abuse of power. Local activist groups share the video, calling for immediate action against Officer Thompson. As Jack drives away with Malik in custody, he remains oblivious to the storm that's about to break over him, unaware that his actions have just set in motion a chain of events that will change both their lives forever. The video of Jack's aggressive arrest of Malik spreads rapidly across social media platforms. Within hours, it catches the attention of local news outlets. Reporters begin digging into Jack Thompson's background, uncovering a troubling pattern of similar incidents. At the police station, Malik sits in a holding cell, his wrists still sore from the tight handcuffs. He overhears officers talking about the viral video and the growing public outrage. Malik realizes that his undercover mission to investigate police corruption has taken an unexpected turn. Meanwhile, Jack returns home after his shift, unaware of the brewing storm. As he settles in for the evening, his phone starts buzzing incessantly with notifications. Curious, he checks social media and finds himself at the center of firestorm. The video of his arrest of Malik is everywhere, accompanied by hashtags calling for his badge. Panic sets in as Jack realizes the gravity of the situation. He tries to call his superiors, but his calls go unanswered. Outside, he hears a commotion and peers through the window to see a group of protesters gathering, holding signs demanding justice. The next morning, Jack wakes to find news vans parked outside his house. Reporters shout questions as he tries to leave for work. "Officer Thompson, how do you respond to allegations of racial profiling? Do you have a history of using excessive force?" Jack pushes past them, his face a mask of anger and fear. At the station, Jack faces a hostile environment. Colleagues avoid eye contact, and he's immediately called into the chief's office. The chief, red-faced and furious, demands an explanation. Jack stumbles through his justification, but it's clear his excuses fall flat. As the day progresses, more details about Jack's past emerge in the media. Reports surface of previous complaints filed against him, most dismissed or buried. The public's anger intensifies, and calls for his suspension grow louder. After being released from custody, Malik wastes no time in connecting with local activist groups. He joins the Community Alliance for Justice, an organization known for its fight against police brutality and racial discrimination. Malik's firsthand experience becomes a powerful tool in their ongoing battle. At their first meeting, Malik shares his story, careful not to reveal his FBI identity. His account resonates deeply with the group, galvanizing their efforts. They begin planning peaceful protests and awareness campaigns, with Malik quickly becoming a central figure in their strategy. Meanwhile, Jack's world continues to crumble. Suspended pending investigation. He spends his days obsessively researching Malik. He scours social media, public records, and even considers using his police connections to dig deeper. But every piece of information he finds only fuels his anger and frustration. Malik, now free to continue his undercover work, starts piecing together a complex web of corruption within the police department. He discovers that Jack's actions are just the tip of the iceberg. Evidence points to a systemic problem involving bribes, cover-ups, and a code of silence among officers. During a late-night stakeout, Malik observes a clandestine meeting between high-ranking officers and known criminals. He carefully documents the exchange, adding it to his growing pile of evidence. The scope of the corruption becomes clear. It extends far beyond individual bad actors like Jack. As Malik delves deeper, he uncovers financial records suggesting a network of payoffs. Officers on the take are protecting drug dealers, turning a blind eye to certain crimes, and even participating in illegal activities themselves. Jack's name appears multiple times in these records, linking him to the larger scheme. Realizing the danger of his investigation, Malik takes precautions. He encrypts his findings and creates secure backups. He knows that if the corrupt officers discover his true identity, his life could be in danger. Jack, unaware of Malik's true role, becomes increasingly paranoid. He starts following Malik, convinced that exposing some dirt on him could salvage his own career. This obsession pushes Jack closer to the edge, making him reckless and unpredictable. The Community Alliance for Justice organizes a town hall meeting to address police misconduct. Malik, now recognized as a victim of police brutality, is invited to speak. The community center is packed with concerned citizens, activists, and media in attendance. Malik takes the stage, his presence commanding attention. He speaks clearly and forcefully about his experience with Jack Thompson, careful not to reveal his undercover status. "What happened to me isn't unique," he states. "It's a symptom of a larger problem that plagues our law enforcement." As Malik continues, he outlines the importance of community vigilance and the need for systemic change. His words resonate with the audience, sparking a passionate discussion about police reform. Malik's eloquence and first-hand experience make him a natural leader in this movement. Meanwhile, Jack Thompson faces his own reckoning at the police department. The chief of police calls him in for a disciplinary hearing. Jack enters the room, his usual confidence replaced by nervous tension. The chief, along with internal affairs officers, confronts him with mounting evidence of his misconduct. They present Jack with a dossier of complaints filed against him over the years. Many of these were previously dismissed, but in light of the recent incident, they're being re-examined. Jack squirms in his seat as each accusation is read aloud. "Officer Thompson, how do you explain this pattern of behavior?" the chief asks, his tone stern and disappointed. Jack attempts to defend himself, citing the dangers of the job and the split-second decisions officers must make. But his excuses sound hollow even to his own ears. As the meeting progresses, it becomes clear that Jack's position in the force is untenable. The internal affairs officer speaks up. "We've also uncovered some financial discrepancies in your records, Thompson. Care to explain those?" Jack's face pales. He realizes that his involvement in the broader corruption scheme might be exposed. He stammers, trying to deflect, but the look on the chief's face tells him it's too late. As the meeting concludes, Jack is informed that he's suspended without pay pending a full investigation. He leaves the station, his career and reputation in tatters, knowing that this is just the beginning of his troubles. Outside, Jack is met by a group of reporters. Their questions blur together as he pushes through, his mind racing with the realization that his world is crumbling around him. He gets into his car, slamming the door on the shouted questions, unsure of where to go or what to do next. Malik receives intel about an exclusive police gala, an annual event where high-ranking officers and influential community members mingle. Suspecting this could be a goldmine of information on corrupt activities, he devises a plan to infiltrate the party. Using his FBI resources, Malik secures an invitation under an alias. He arrives at the lavish venue, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. As he enters, he scans the room, recognizing faces from his investigation files. Malik moves through the crowd with practiced ease, eavesdropping on conversations. He overhears snippets about shipments, payoffs, and keeping things quiet. Each word adds another piece to the puzzle of corruption he's assembling. In a quiet corner, Malik activates a hidden recording device. He approaches a group of officers, introducing himself as a potential investor in the city. The conversation quickly turns to business opportunities that skirt the edge of legality. One officer, clearly intoxicated, boasts about a recent drug bust where evidence mysteriously disappeared. Another mentions a system for dealing with troublesome witnesses. Malik asks careful questions, encouraging them to reveal more. Across the room, Jack Thompson enters the gala. Despite his suspension, he's determined to attend, hoping to gather support from his colleagues. His eyes dart nervously around the room, aware that he's not entirely welcome. As Jack makes his way through the crowd, he spots Malik. Confusion turns to anger as he wonders how this man he arrested is now mingling with police brass. Suspicion clouds his judgment, and he decides to confront Malik. Malik, engrossed in a revealing conversation with a sergeant, doesn't notice Jack's approach. Just as the sergeant is about to disclose something crucial, Jack interrupts. "You, what are you doing here?" Jack demands, his voice rising. Malik turns, maintaining his composure. "Good evening, Officer Thompson. I believe we've met under less pleasant circumstances." The sergeant looks between them, confused. "You two know each other?" Jack, red-faced, starts to explain, but Malik smoothly interjects. "Officer Thompson and I had a misunderstanding recently, but that's all sorted out now, isn't it, officer?" Jack seethes, realizing he can't make a scene without further damaging his already precarious position. He glares at Malik, suspecting there's more to this man than meets the eye. As Jack storms off, Malik knows his cover is at risk. He needs to gather as much information as possible and leave before things escalate. The night is far from over, and the most dangerous part of his mission is just beginning. Jack, fuming from his encounter with Malik, retreats to the bar. He downs a drink, his mind racing with suspicions. Unable to shake the feeling that Malik is up to something, he decides to confront him again, this time more aggressively. Malik, aware of Jack's volatile state, tries to maintain a low profile. He continues gathering information, knowing his time is limited. As he engages in a hushed conversation with a detective known for his questionable practices, Jack approaches again. "I want answers now," Jack demands, grabbing Malik's arm. "How did you get in here? What's your game?" Malik calmly removes Jack's hand. "Officer Thompson, I suggest you calm down. This isn't the place for a scene." The detective looks uncomfortable. "Everything okay here?" "No, it's not," Jack snaps. "This man is not who he claims to be." Malik stands his ground. "The truth will come out, Officer Thompson. It always does. Maybe it's time you considered which side of it you want to be on." Jack's face contorts with rage. He lunges at Malik, fist raised. "You smug bastard." Several officers nearby react quickly, restraining Jack before he can land the punch. Malik steps back, maintaining his composure. "Let me go," Jack shouts, struggling against his colleague's grip. The commotion draws attention from across the room. The police chief approaches, his face a mask of controlled anger. "Thompson, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Jack, realizing the gravity of his actions, stops struggling. He looks around, seeing the shocked and disappointed faces of his fellow officers. The reality of his situation sinks in. He's just sabotaged any chance of salvaging his career. Malik seizes the opportunity. "I think it's best if I leave. Gentlemen, thank you for the evening." He nods respectfully to the chief and makes his exit, the recording device safely hidden and full of incriminating evidence. As Malik leaves, Jack is escorted out of the gala, his colleagues keeping a firm grip on him. The chief follows, his voice low and furious. "You're done, Thompson. Turn in your badge and gun. You're not just suspended anymore, you're fired." Jack, dejected and angry, is led away. He watches helplessly as Malik disappears into the night, knowing that somehow, this man is at the center of his downfall but unable to prove it. Malik, once safely away from the venue, contacts his FBI handler. "I've got it," he says into his secure phone. Everything we need to blow this case wide open. He knows the real work is just beginning, but tonight marks a turning point in the investigation. The day after the gala, Malik meets with Sarah Chun, a respected investigative journalist known for her exposés on government corruption. They convene in a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. I have evidence of widespread corruption within the police department, Malik says, sliding a USB drive across the table. Audio recordings, financial documents, everything you need to break this story wide open. Sarah's eyes widen as she listens to snippets of the recordings. This is explosive stuff, she whispers. Are you sure about this? There will be serious backlash. Malik nods grimly. It's time the truth came out. People need to know. Over the next few days, Sarah works tirelessly to corroborate Malik's evidence. She reaches out to other sources, cross-references financial records, and builds a comprehensive narrative of the corruption. Meanwhile, Jack Thompson's life continues to unravel. His termination from the force becomes public knowledge, sparking renewed interest in his case. Protesters gather outside his home daily, demanding justice for his past actions. Isolated and desperate, Jack reaches out to former colleagues, but doors slam shut in his face. Those still willing to talk warn him of the growing investigation. Panic sets in as Jack realizes the extent of the trouble he's in. A week later, Sarah's exposé hits the front page. The article details years of systemic corruption, naming names, and providing damning evidence. Jack features prominently, his case used as a prime example of the department's failings. The public reaction is immediate and intense. Calls for reform echo through the city. The mayor holds an emergency press conference, promising a thorough investigation and sweeping changes. Jack watches the fallout on TV, a bottle of whiskey in hand. His phone buzzes constantly with messages from lawyers, journalists, and former friends cutting ties. In a moment of desperation, he reaches out to some of the corrupt officers named in the article. "We need to do something," Jack slurs into the phone. "We can't let them take us down like this." On the other end, a voice responds coolly, "Keep your mouth shut, Thompson. We'll handle this our way." As the day progresses, more officers are brought in for questioning. The FBI, now able to act on Malik's intelligence, launches a series of coordinated raids across the city. Malik, watching the events unfold from a safe distance, feels a mix of pride and apprehension. He knows the fight is far from over, and the most dangerous phase is yet to come. The corrupt elements of the force, backed into a corner, may lash out in unpredictable ways. Encouraged by the public support and media attention, Malik decides to take legal action against Jack Thompson and the police department. He meets with a civil rights attorney, laying out his case for wrongful arrest and discrimination. "We have a strong case," the attorney says, reviewing the evidence. "The video, your testimony, and now this exposé. It's compelling." Malik nods, determined. "It's not just about me. It's about changing the system." The lawsuit is filed, making headlines and adding to the mounting pressure on the police department. The city's legal team scrambles to respond, knowing the case could set a costly precedent. As the pre-trial proceedings begin, the courtroom becomes a battleground. Malik's attorney presents a strong opening statement, outlining the pattern of abuse and discrimination within the force. "Your Honor, this case is about more than one incident. It's about a systemic failure to protect and serve all citizens equally," the attorney argues. The defense tries to paint Malik as an opportunist, but their arguments fall flat in the face of overwhelming evidence. Jack, sitting at the defense table, looks increasingly uncomfortable as the case against him builds. Witnesses begin to testify. Former colleagues of Jack's, emboldened by the changing tide, come forward with stories of his past misconduct. Community members share their experiences of discriminatory policing. One officer, visibly nervous, takes the stand. "There was an unwritten rule," he testifies. "Certain neighborhoods, certain people, they were treated differently. Thompson was just following the playbook we all used." Jack's attorney attempts to discredit the witnesses, but each cross-examination only seems to strengthen Malik's case. The courtroom is tense, filled with media and concerned citizens watching every development. As the trial progresses, more evidence comes to light. Internal memos and emails reveal attempts to cover up complaints against officers like Jack. The scope of the case expands, implicating higher-ranking officials in the department. Jack, seeing the writing on the wall, becomes increasingly agitated. During a recess, he confronts his lawyer. "This is a witch hunt. They're making me the scapegoat for the whole department." His lawyer tries to calm him, but Jack's outburst is overheard by reporters. The next day's headlines focus on Jack's apparent lack of remorse, further swaying public opinion against him. As the trial nears its conclusion, the atmosphere in the courtroom is electric. Both sides prepare for their closing arguments, knowing that the outcome of this case could reshape policing in the city for years to come. The trial reaches its climax as Malik takes the stand. The courtroom falls silent, all eyes on him as he begins his testimony. Malik speaks clearly and confidently, recounting the night of his arrest and the broader issues it represents. "It wasn't just about that one night," Malik testifies. "It was about a system that allowed officers like Thompson to operate with impunity, targeting people based on the color of their skin." As Malik speaks, Jack shifts uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding eye contact. The jury listens intently, many taking notes. During cross-examination, Jack's lawyer attempts to undermine Malik's credibility. "Mr. Johnson, isn't it true that you have a history of activism against the police?" Malik remains composed. "I have a history of standing up for justice and equal treatment under the law. That night, I was simply walking home when Officer Thompson decided I was a criminal based on nothing but prejudice." The defense's strategy backfires as Malik's responses only serve to highlight the systemic issues within the department. Each question seems to strengthen Malik's case rather than weaken it. As the trial continues, new evidence emerges. A fellow officer, motivated by conscience, comes forward with body cam footage that corroborates Malik's account and contradicts Jack's official report. The courtroom erupts in murmurs as the video plays. Jack slumps in his chair, realizing the extent of his exposure. His lawyer frantically whispers to him, but Jack seems resigned to his fate. In a surprising turn, several community members whom Jack had previously arrested come forward to testify. They share similar stories of bias and excessive force, painting a picture of an officer who routinely abused his power. The atmosphere in the courtroom becomes increasingly charged. Spectators react audibly to each new piece of evidence, and the judge has to call for order several times. As the trial nears its end, Jack's demeanor changes. The bravado he displayed at the beginning has evaporated, replaced by a look of defeat. He leans over to his lawyer, whispering urgently. Moments later, Jack's lawyer stands. "Your Honor, in light of the evidence presented, my client wishes to change his plea." A hush falls over the courtroom. Malik and his attorney exchange surprised glances. The judge leans forward. "Proceed, counselor." Jack stands, his voice barely audible. "Guilty, Your Honor. I plead guilty." The admission sends shockwaves through the courtroom. Reporters rush out to break the news, while Malik sits in stunned silence, realizing the impact of this moment on the larger fight for police reform. The judge's gavel falls, bringing the courtroom to order. In light of the defendant's guilty plea and the overwhelming evidence presented, this court finds Jack Thompson guilty of abuse of power, racial discrimination, and filing false reports. Jack stands stoically as the judge continues. "Mr. Thompson, your actions have not only violated the rights of Mr. Johnson, but have also betrayed the trust placed in you as a law enforcement officer. You are hereby sentenced to 5 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for 3 years." The courtroom erupts in a mix of cheers and shocked gasps. Malik remains composed, his face a mask of quiet satisfaction. As Jack is led away in handcuffs, their eyes meet briefly. A moment of unspoken acknowledgement passes between them. Outside the courthouse, a crowd of supporters and media await. Malik emerges to a sea of cameras and microphones. He steps up to the podium, his voice steady and resolute. "Today, justice has been served, but our work is far from over," Malik declares. "This case has exposed deep-rooted issues within our law enforcement system. It's time for comprehensive reform, for accountability, and for a new era of community-oriented policing." In the days that follow, Malik becomes the face of a growing movement for police reform. He's invited to speak at conferences, universities, and even before state legislators. His story and his call for change resonate across the nation. Meanwhile, the FBI publicly acknowledges Malik's role in uncovering the broader corruption scandal. His undercover work is hailed as instrumental in bringing down not just Jack Thompson, but a network of corrupt officers and officials. As Malik's profile rises, he uses his platform to push for concrete changes, improved training, independent oversight, and community involvement in policing strategies. His experience and eloquence make him a powerful advocate for reform. However, just as Malik begins to feel that real progress is being made, he receives a cryptic message from his FBI handler. "We need to talk. There's more to this than we thought." In a secure meeting room, Malik is briefed on a startling development. The corruption they uncovered goes beyond the local police force. Evidence suggests a connection to higher levels of government, and even within the FBI itself. Malik realizes that his journey is far from over. The case that began with a single wrongful arrest has unraveled a conspiracy that threatens the very foundations of law enforcement. As he leaves the meeting, Malik's resolve strengthens. He knows the fight ahead will be challenging and potentially dangerous, but he's committed to seeing it through. The true battle for justice and reform is just beginning, and Malik is ready to lead the charge.